Welcome. Today is July 29th, and welcome to the video devotional as we continue our walk through the Beatitudes, these wonderful short teachings that Jesus offered at the beginning of what we call the Sermon on the Mount. Today's Beatitude is Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. I hear in this Beatitude Jesus describing how God's kingdom will come about, not by war, violence, imposition, or coercion. The Jewish zealots of the New Testament era were committed to bringing about God's rule through violence. One of the 12 disciples that Jesus called unto himself and who was present there at the Sermon on the Mount listening to the Beatitudes was a zealot. Some even think that the term Iscariot of the disciple Judas Iscariot, who became the betrayer, refers to a group of assassins who would murder Roman and Jewish officials who they believed were working against the concepts in the place of Jewish independence. Jesus is saying that way of violence is rejected. We know that the Romans, who ruled the known world of that day, conquered continents through the violence of their legions. That way was rejected. God's kingdom will be instituted through and by peacemakers, not warmongers. Who is a peacemaker? Well, a peacemaker is one who cooperates with God's plan and vision of shalom for his people and creation. And cooperation is more than just agreeing to a principle. It includes action and commitment. It means living in a way that actively promotes and seeks God's peaceful kingdom, not only when it's convenient or easy. This, more often than not, requires sacrifice. Not many people would argue with the idea that a peacemaker is blessed, but who wants to be a peacemaker? No one wants to play a movie role titled that they're the peacemaker in the movie. No, I want to be Arnold or Tom Cruise, who wins the day or enforces peace through cool karate moves and really big guns. I watched a movie a while back, I think it came out in the late 90s, early aughts, titled The Peacemaker. It's actually action shoot 'em up. One of my favorite old movies, some of you will recognize this, a Western. The retiring sheriff wants to get out of the sheriffing business because he's married a Quaker. And she's a pacifist and has convinced him to walk away from his life of guns and violence and enforcing the law. And this movie called High Noon, starring Gary Cooper and Grace Kelly, ends with the Grace Kelly character, a Quaker, going against everything she believes in by picking up a gun and killing somebody to save her husband's life. Nobody wants to be the peacemaker. It's not actively sought out in today's society. What does it take to be a peacemaker today? Well, first of all, a vision of God's shalom, to use the Old Testament Hebrew word. When Jesus spoke the word for peacemaker in the Sermon on the Mount, he didn't speak Greek, and he didn't use the Greek word that I read in the Greek New Testament. Jesus spoke in Aramaic. It's a language derived from Hebrew. And Jesus would be thinking, and the crowds would be hearing, not a Greek word for peace, but the Hebrew word, the Hebrew concepts of shalom. I guess many of you, especially those of you who attend my church, will remember how I often describe the word shalom and what God is meaning. That shalom is life as God willed and wills it to be. A wonderful passage that I refer to often describing this shalom is found in Isaiah chapter 65, specifically verses 17 to 25. I just want to read the first opening verses. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former things will not be remembered or come to mind. But be glad and rejoice forever in what I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem for rejoicing, and her people for gladness. And then the last verse or two of this wonderful passage showing God's kingdom as a kingdom of shalom reads, the wolf and the lamb will graze together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox, and dust will be the serpent's food. They will do no evil or harm in all my holy mountain, says the Lord. Jesus in the New Testament offers his own vision of shalom, of the shalom of God's kingdom in the Sermon on the Mount with these words. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evil person, but whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, let him have your coat also. Whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks of you, and do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. That's found in Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 to 44. To summarize, Jesus envisions peacemakers as people who turn the other cheek, go the extra mile, love neighbor and enemy, who forgive those who have sinned against you, who care for and act in ways that show preference for the weaker brother or sister. This could be the most apropos beatitude for 2020. Blessed are the peacemakers addresses some of the most important questions we're facing today. How do I react to people who disagree with me about wearing masks and social distancing? What do I think about the protests around Black Lives Matter? Put it in another way, how do I treat people who believe me to be part of a racist system? Then, what about the extreme violence that's taking place around all this? How do I respond to people living in today's environment trapped in anger or trapped in fear? What is my role as a Christian during a terribly divisive political season? What do I think about schools and universities opening or staying closed? The answer is the same in each instance. Blessed are the peacemakers. Not those who throw gasoline on the fire, who condemn and rebuke others, who isolate themselves from the world of problems, who take it upon themselves to mete out justice, whatever they think it to be. This is a lot more difficult than not fussing with your neighbor over the leaves that fall out of his tree into your yard. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. What a reward that Jesus mentions here for the peacemaker, be called children of God. More than citizens of God's kingdom, we are members of his family. Think about this. A citizen is protected by laws, police, boundaries on a map. A child is loved and nurtured without end. A citizen has rights. A child has love. I wonder if Jesus is preparing us for what will come a little later in the Sermon on the Mount, for this passage that we call the Lord's Prayer, where he teaches us to pray beginning with these words, Our Father, our Father. Not mighty King, not great Lord, but Father. Not citizens, but family. Yes, the peacemaker is blessed or happy in the Lord because we have God as our Father and Jesus as our elder brother. The peacemaker is blessed beyond words as members of God's family. May God bless you.